In this screencast, I'm going to be going over HTML document structure. So by the end of the screencast, you will have created a starting page for your personal landing page, which is going to be the first project of the course. So for HTML document structure, I'm going to talk about two things. The first is what we call the document object model, or the DOM, and then we'll come back and look at actually writing HTML. At this point, you've already explored HTML and CSS, so you've seen some of this code at work. But we'll start from the beginning now so you can really see how we write it from scratch. So, the document object model. The document object model describes a model, a tree-like model that your browser builds of every web page that you visit. And the best way to understand the DOM is to just play with it. So I'm going to ask you to open a new tab and go ahead and just go to Google. And go to the Google homepage. Now we're going to introduce a new tool called developer tools. These are tools that really allow you to look behind the scenes of a website, so you'll see a lot of the code that's powering your favorite websites. You can see what's happening with errors in the console, etc. So to open up developer tools, you can do it in two ways. One is to click the menu icon here in Chrome, go to more tools, and then developer tools, and that will open up developer tools for you. The other way you can do it, I'm going to close this, is to use a shortcut, which is what I prefer. So the shortcut on a Mac is Command Option I, so Command Option Inspect, and that will pop up your developer tools as well. So definitely get in the habit of using the shortcut. Your developer tools may look slightly different from mine. It may be in a different part of the page. So if I click this little menu option here, you'll see the option for dock side. So it's possible that yours is actually docked to the bottom of the page. So it looks like this. It doesn't really matter. It's really up to you how you prefer it. For some things, I prefer it to be docked to the right. For other things, I prefer it to be docked to the left. So for this case, let's just keep it docked to the left. The other thing to know about developer tools is there's a lot going on here. You can always drag and drop to rearrange things. So here I'm in the Elements tab, and to the right it's got Styles. So I've dragged this a little bit so that the styles are easier to see. And this is going to be important for the exercise that we'll be doing. So here on the Google page, I'm looking at the elements. So this is showing me all the code for the google.com website, and this will make more sense, especially at the end of this lesson when you've learned a bit more HTML and CSS, but I can expand it. See, I just expanded here something called the head, and as I'm scrolling through, nothing's really happening. And then here, there's something called the body, and if I expand that, as I highlight, different things are being highlighted in the body of this HTML page. So just go ahead and play with it a little bit. I'm actually going to go to the Google page, scroll down, highlight one of these things in the footer, and click Inspect. So I would click Inspect, and that actually takes me to that element in the code here. So again, the way I did that was I clicked on something, like a two-finger click, and then Inspect Element. And that brings me here. This lets me inspect the code that makes up that thing. So as you can see here, I'm inspecting this part of the Google homepage. And something that's really cool that you can do for any web page is you can actually change the web page. So right here, I'm looking at these footers, right? These are the footer elements: advertising, business, about, etc. So if I click here, and this thing called class F bar, it stands for footer bar, you'll see here that there's a whole bunch of styles that govern this thing. But I can actually go ahead and I can actually change some of these. So here it says font size small. If I click inside it, I could say font size 40 pixels. And look, I just changed the font size of the Google homepage. I can click enter and do color purple. Okay, so the footer bar doesn't control the color, but I can find where the actual, see, here's the background color of it. I can go in here and say background pink. So now I've changed the background of it, but the point is, using DevTools, you can actually play around with different websites, see the code that's powering them, and then make some cool changes to the code itself. So if I inspect here, the Google logo, I can also have the option to make some changes to it. So it's an image, so I can't change the text itself, but I can change some things. I can change some things around it, just like I did for footer. Now, if I close the inspector, it's going to maintain the changes I've made in my browser for that session. But if I refresh the page, it's just going to go back to the normal, regular Google page. So those are dev tools. They're really useful. We're going to use them a ton in this class. Now, for the purposes of this exercise, Google's really cool, but it's a little bit complicated. We're going to go ahead and look at a really simple web page that I've created. So the page, you'll see a link to it in GitHub, but it is adasimpletree.neocities.org. Yeah, so much simpler page here. Again, I'm going to open my DevTools by using Command Option I. And because this page is really simple, I'm actually going to dock it to the side so that I can look at the page and my DevTools side by side. And there aren't too many styles here, so I really care mostly about this element tab. So go ahead and expand everything. You notice as I'm hovering over different lines, they're actually being highlighted in the page. One of the things that your browser does for every web page is it creates what is called a tree. So the document object model defines this tree. So the tree is just a representation of your page. So here, for example, if I collapse everything, you'll notice that there's only really a couple of top level elements of this page: HTML, head, and body. And then within the head, if I spread it, I see something called meta and title. If I expand the body, you'll see a whole bunch of other things. So, but it's like a tree, right? There's a parent and there's a child. So for example, the parent is the head and its children are meta and title. Body is a parent and it's got a bunch of children. It's got header and section, and then within header, there are also more children. So this is how the browser, when it gets your code, represents your page. It creates what we call a tree of your page. So let me show you here this image, right? So it creates this tree-like structure of your page, starting with the first tag and going down. So as part of this exercise, what I want you to do is to go to this home page, this web page, adasimpletree.neocities.org, and use the inspector to explore the code and actually create the DOM tree. So write out the DOM tree for this page. It's going to end up looking something like this. Feel free to do this on paper if it's fastest and easiest. You can also use a Google Doc to create the tree, but once you've created the tree, you're going to end up submitting that at the end of the exercise. So that's the HTML document tree. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually writing HTML itself. So I want to go into HTML document structure. A couple of things about HTML. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is really old. It was created in the early 90s. There's a group called the W3C, the W3 Consortium, that essentially creates the rules. They create the official documentation for HTML markup. And HTML has had tons and tons of versions. We had HTML4 in 1997, XHTML, and then in 2008, that was the latest version, something called HTML5, which really expanded HTML and made it super modern for the things that we do today. And oftentimes when people say just HTML, what they really mean is HTML5. So that's what modern developers are writing today. So remember, we talked about this in the beginning of class, but every web page basically has three components. It's got the content, it's got structure, and it's got appearance. So the content of your web page is stuff like your text, your images. That's the information that you actually want to share with your user. And then HTML is a markup language that really gives that content meaning. HTML says this thing is a header, this thing is a paragraph, this thing is a link. And then finally, CSS is the code that gives it style and appearance. So CSS is going to be it's a presentation language, and it gives your content the things like colors, background. So when we were exploring HTML and CSS, you saw that the CSS file dealt with a lot of the style, where the HTML file actually deals with the markup. So your first project, and we'll be working on this together in class, is going to be to create a personal landing page. So this is my landing page. Yours is going to look really different. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you to see. But your personal landing page will just be a simple one-page website that says something about you, and that's going to be the first project that you'll submit for the course. So we're going to start working on your personal landing page now. First thing we have to do is set you up. So we're going to set up a Cloud9 workspace for this personal landing page and create some basic files. So now, here's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to go to Cloud9, c9.io, and you're going to create a new workspace. And this time we'll call the workspace landing page. You don't need to create a description or anything, so just hit landing page and create workspace. So Cloud9 is going to do its thing, and it should be really fast to create this one because we're not starting with GitHub. So we're just going to create a simple container for your project. And then once your Cloud9 workspace gets created, we're going to add in some files for your project. So while that's happening, let me close tabs that I don't need. And then I'll go back here and show you some things. So once we have our workspace set up in Cloud9, we're going to create a HTML file, a CSS style sheet, and then we're going to add a folder where we'll store our images. One thing that's really important to keep in mind when you're working on HTML and CSS is that all your files for a website have to be in the same directory. And directory is just a word that really means folder. You'll hear me say directory a lot, but you want to make sure that you're storing everything in the same directory. So let's see. Great, so Cloud9 is done. Thank you. It gives me this file that I don't need, the README. You can just delete it. And then you can actually come to the right here and select this file and just hit delete. We're not going to need it. All right, and now we're going to create our own file. So we're going to create, just hit the plus button for new file, and we're going to create just a blank file and then save it, Command S, and you want to save it, make sure it's being saved in your landing page folder, and we're going to call it index.html. Go ahead and save that, and then create another file, save it, and we're going to call it styles.css. Okay, and then lastly, we can come over here, right click on the landing page, and hit new folder, because this time we want to create a folder, and we'll just call it images. And that's going to be where we'll store our images. So when you're done, yours should look like this. You should have the landing page parent folder, and under it, it's got another subfolder called images. It's got an index.html file and a styles.css file. We're going to start working in just the index.html file, and we're going to actually write some HTML. So now what you want to do is, in your index.html file, you want to write this HTML. So this would be a really good time for you to pause the video and just go ahead and write this HTML and save it. So let me just go ahead and do it here, and I'll do it by just typing. And remember that we actually want to type everything. You never ever want to copy and paste. So I start by typing doctype HTML. What's nice about Cloud9 is when you type in opening tags, it automatically closes it for you. So if I type in head and hit enter, it's actually going to give me the closing head tag, and we'll talk more about tags in a little bit. And then inside the head, I want to type in title, and I'm going to just put my name as the title. And then after the head, I'm going to type body. Okay, so this is what your page should look like. Make sure that you've typed in the code exactly. And then when you've done that, hit preview and live preview of the file. And remember from last time, we always want to look at the preview in a separate window just to make it simple for us. So hit this icon to open the preview, pop it out to a new window, and then close it. So here's my page. How very exciting. You probably noticed that there's absolutely nothing on the page. The only content that's visible on the page right now is my name, and it got that from here, the title tag. So the title tag always goes in the browser, and that's the only thing I can see now. So this isn't very exciting, but it's more than nothing. So now we want to try to make more content appear in the browser. How do you think we would do that? So the way to make more content appear in the browser is to add more stuff in the body. So the only thing that you're going to actually see on your page are the things that are in the body of your HTML page. So inside the body here, I'm going to put a P, which stands for paragraph, and then I'm going to type some stuff. Let's see, what did I say I wanted to type? Okay, so I'll just type in something really simple. Okay, so I'm typing stuff in. I'm going to do Command S, make sure I see that all changes saved icon, go here, and there you see. Now that I've typed some stuff in the body, it's actually appearing on my page. So we're going to stop there for now. At the end of this exercise, make sure that you've typed in this HTML page, you see the content appear on your page, and then you're going to take this preview link and you're going to submit that.